Do you want to hear the story behind the greatest exit of the French tech in 2019? Sorry, I just can't hear you. Do you want to hear the story behind the greatest exit of the French tech in 2019? Sounds better. So, what's the greatest exit of the French tech in 2019? Okay, GetAround by Drivy. Please welcome on stage Paulin Dementhon, founder of Drivy, right now. Big round of applause for Paulin. And we have one amazing unicorn founder. She's coming straight from the US. She's talking for the first time here in Paris at a French event. Please, big round of applause for Jessica Scorpio. What an entrance, Jessica. We are very, very happy to have you in town. Paulin, that's such a legendary move that you made in 2019. But I want to ask a few, tricky questions. We've known each other for a couple of years now. It's quite fascinating because you had the leadership on the European leader in car sharing, and you decide to sell. So my question is going to be a very straightforward one. Did you lack ambitions? Why not becoming a unicorn yourself instead of selling to a unicorn?
Well, I mean, I think this is... sorry, the mic is not working. Thank you. So I think it's all about ambition, actually. So there are three main reasons why we made this decision. The number one is that mobility is a trillion, like disrupting mobility is $1 trillion opportunity. We want to be one of the five leading transportation apps in the world. To achieve that, you need not tens of millions of investments, you need hundreds of millions of investment. We could not stay a regional player. We wanted to be big and global. That really matters a lot for partnership, for brand, for app building. And GetAround was the perfect match to do that. And they were the first one to raise 300 million with SoftBank, and so to be able to consolidate the market. So it's all about ambition. Actually, if we wanted not to be too ambitious, to be independent but not so ambitious, we could defend Europe. And here it's about really going to the next stage and being one of these big apps.
And so I'm going to turn to Jessica. Thank you for your very straightforward answer to my very straightforward question. Jessica, another straightforward question. You could have expanded in Asia by buying, I don't know, the car sharing leader in Asia. You decided to pick Europe. That's quite an interesting move. And why Europe and why Drivy?
First off, really great to be here. Thank you all for joining the conversation. And just adding what Paulin was saying, we're super excited to be working together. And we weren't specifically looking to buy a company, and we wouldn't even know that Drivy was interested. But I think what brings us together and what we're so excited about is just the mission and the vision was so aligned, and that we've both been in this business for 10 years, building a great business regionally and knowing that it was important to do that to grow market share, and then both wanting to go to the next level but together rather than trying to compete. We both looked at the option of going and competing, and you just had the Brit on stage who said you can come to Europe and not get it right. So I think we made a good decision in this area. And also knowing, I think part of the big benefit is the hardware technology that we've built is a game changer. So to be able to combine what exists in Europe through Drivy to bring our hardware is really what can make this a mass market and the, decacorn or whatever they're calling it these days. And yeah, why Europe? So Europe and Asia, global in general is very interesting. So we'll go anywhere there's interest. But Europe's a key market, both for strategic partnerships and you can see that we have even another acquisition from this summer in Scandinavia. So we're really shoring up Europe.
Let me follow up on that point. It's the first time that you're talking at a French event, an amazing event, obviously, with an amazing crowd that is applauding you all the time. Yeah. And what was your vision? What was your opinion about the French tech ecosystem before meeting this amazing person?
Well, definitely, I've been in the Bay Area for the past 10 years, and I've seen a trend in the past 5 or more where you've had startup ecosystems growing outside of the Bay. And certainly that's the case in Paris, that's the case in London. There's different pockets that have really the entrepreneurial vibe and the technology background that makes it a great ecosystem. Certainly events like this are one of the key things that help to build the community. So I see the trend where we have more investment coming to international companies, which is a really good trend. And then the way software technology works is, you know, if you can build that entrepreneurial mindset and get the capital, you can build world-class companies outside of the Bay Area. So, and then the best, obviously, is when they come together like this situation right here.
Thank you for encouraging us. We keep saying that we have amazing engineers in France. Another tricky question. Is a French engineer better than an American engineer?
No comment.
Okay, well, I'll move back to Paulin. A lot of people noticed that you were getting acquired by an American startup. So a French startup by an American startup. And in France, we have a lot of huge corporates in mobility. We have RATP, we have FH, Vinci, and the likes. And still, you prefer to match, as you said, with an American startup rather than a French corporate. In your mind, do you think French startups share more with American startups rather than French corporates?
I think it's hard to do theory around that, and I don't think in M&A you decide to sell to that type of company and then you look at the list, it's more the opportunity. And for us, it's all about achieving our mission to a much greater scale. And so definitely I think what's missing with corporates today in the mobility industry, so especially car manufacturers, is much larger scale partnerships. So we did a few in Europe. GetAround US did some higher level partnerships, and we hope to push that at a worldwide level, but it's still, I think, limited impact. And typically the car manufacturers first said they were more observing, and then they said we will do everything by ourselves and we will crush everybody. And now I think progressively we are getting to a better and better understanding and a better potential cooperation. And actually it's one of our goals to strike very impactful partnerships. But so far, definitely, like the opportunity to merge with GetAround is getting much bigger, much faster. We didn't see that yet with corporates. And M&A doesn't really matter here. What matters to us is to make progress in the business thanks to these future partnerships.
So you never felt like there was a cultural gap between French startups and French corporates?
Well, I think there is for sure a gap between very small companies and very large companies. I think regardless probably of the sector, except for and we don't have these huge technology giants which are only 15 years old and have market caps of several hundred billion like Silicon Valley has. So definitely that's a kind of animal that we don't have.
That's definitely something I wanted to ask to Jessica. You're a very big startup. It's quite amazing what you've built in such a few years. How do you build that? What's the relationship that you have with American corporate? And do you feel this is a trend or something that you can achieve in the near future?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, the question is, obviously we have a problem between French startups and French corporate. Yeah. How do you guys work with US corporate on your domestic market?
Yeah, I think we've been able to get some success with big corporates. Like we also looked at OEM relationships and see a way to really scale with them. Of course, those are really long-term discussions, like discussions we started 5+ years ago, like are still getting signed today. So it's really kind of taking a long-term approach as we have in general with the business. But then, like mobility really is like a very hot space with a lot of developments. And I think as you see it shake out, like Paulin was saying, like there's even more opportunity for partnership. So like we have a really successful partnership with Uber on multiple fronts where it's synergistic to our business, it helps them, and it, like you're just gonna see more opportunities like that where there's giants in mobility working together, and it's good for the customer.
Well, thank you so much. We, you see that little box over there? It's a catch box. So I'm gonna throw this into the crowd for someone who wants to ask a question, because there is a mic inside that catch box. But before that, I would like to ask 2 personal questions. I've heard something crazy about you, Paulin. Is that you're the leader, the European leader of car sharing, and you're crazy about bikes. You go to work every day, you go to the office every day on a bike. You're a crazy ecologist. You're really militant about that. How do you achieve that? I'm really fascinated by that.
Well, I don't know if riding a bike is so crazy.
Exactly.
Being the leader of car sharing and riding a bike every day.
No, it's also more enjoyable and faster. But it's absolutely true that I have a strong sense of our mission, of the ecological impact of our mission at GetAround. And I think like Drivy and GetAround were precisely designed for people who don't need to commute with a car every day because they do bike, micromobility, public transit. But still, there are some times in your life where you do need a car, and it's the combination of all these modes that make the best cocktail. And the problem was when the car was for, like private cars, not shared, that you use every day, and that's nonsense to move with a ton of metal. So actually, our best public is people riding bikes for all their tiny trips in the city, and then when they need to move around with kids during the weekend or to go to a business meeting outside of town, then they take a GetAround.
I found a stat where if we could have everyone car sharing, we could erase 90% of the cars on the globe. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. With better utilization, you need less cars to serve the same number of people, much less cars, 10 times less cars. And that's a huge opportunity for the quality of life in cities because you can free some space, but also for congestion, for comfort, and of course the savings aspect for the consumer is extremely important. So that's why we are fighting and we are ambitious about that.
So in your job and on your bike, you're saving the planet. Thank you, Paulin. Jessica, you have another mission. You're one of the 3 female unicorn founders today at this event out of 20. And you are running your own global network of young entrepreneurs, helping them to succeed. What are the key? How do we crack this major issue of gender imbalance in the startup scene?
Yeah, so when I started GetAround, I was one of maybe 3, not on this event, but in general, 3 female founders. And one of my goals throughout the process has been to speak about everything I learn and to support women who want to start their businesses and just make a lot of synergies happen. We've seen the space open up a ton. There's definitely a lot of opportunities for women who want to start businesses, but it's hard, it's not easy. And I think the most important thing is just to continue to have more funding opportunities, more opening up the top of the funnel, more technology opportunities, but also mentoring is really key in that. I'm connected with a group of my peers, one of which is one of the other female unicorn founders here. And without that community, it's really hard to feel like you can succeed. So my advice to early stage founders is similar to what I give myself, which is go into it knowing it's probably a 7+ year process. Really pick a problem you're super passionate about. That's age advice. Solve a problem you have yourself. And then, make sure you have a support network and peers, as well as like healthy lifestyle, like whether it's biking to work, eating healthy, like, you know, the long, stressful startup days and hours, you know, need that approach.
Well, thank you so much. Now it's time for sport. No bike, Paulin. We're about to throw the catch box. Does anyone has a question? Raise your hand. Okay, well, I don't have to throw the catch box very, very far. I think that's to you. You ready? Yeah, okay, let's go. You talk in the box.
Is it working? Oh, it's working. Thank you for being here. I know that it's a very long trip. My question is to you both. I really love both your services, being on the bay loads of time a year, especially renting Teslas for 25, 30 bucks an hour. My question is, do you plan to merge your two apps together at one point? It's simple because I just love Uber because I can go everywhere in the world and getting in a car with one account.
Yes, very, very soon you will see, actually, to break the news, one milestone we have is Drivy by GetAround's becoming GetAround Europe next month. And so you will see GetAround Purple, GetAround. Avid users will be sad to say bye to Drivy, but you will have the same experience wherever you go globally with GetAround.
Fantastic.
Bien visé. Thank you very much. It's very interesting. The previous panel has mentioned a lot of fragmentation in Europe. How does your merger will help you take Europe as a whole market, and what kind of fragmentation issues did you experience in car sharing?
Well, definitely it's the huge challenge for the European market to make it more of a single market. So basically we were very famous in, famous maybe not, but we were big in Paris, and when you go to Berlin or London, you start from zero, if not -10, because you are a French company and not an American company. So that's a challenge for the European market. Now, like being bigger and being global and having much more financial power and much more of a long-term serenity on what we will become, it just enables us to build in every market a brand, to acquire some users. So it's more of a brute force thing, and because you don't have enough network effects at the European level, unfortunately, and the more the better. So definitely it's an advantage to be stronger and bigger already to tackle this European market, and it's a challenge for the new starters, which we are no longer part of.
You were already the European leader before selling to GetAround, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We were the European leader, but actually it was saying European is just the sum of very distinct markets, and it's not one market. We are not a travel. We are more a mobility app for people within their cities rather than a travel platform like Airbnb, where you have global network effects. Our network effects are mostly city-based. So basically, when you are strong in Paris, it doesn't bring you much to conquer, say, Barcelona or London.
So one last question, one last minute of sport. Don't throw the catch box to me. Throw the catch box to your friend over there. Yeah. Cyril Foyard, RCI Bank and Services, Groupe Renault.
Oh, you have a good site.
You're VIP.
Thanks. Question to Jessica or Paulin, but how do you see the future of car sharing in a few years from now? Hopefully when people will use autonomous vehicles or will ride autonomous vehicles, or before that when people will subscribe to mobility services?
I'll take a crack and then we can add on. So yeah, in general, we're going to see more adoption. We're excited, obviously, with the European expansion to go really deep in all the major markets. With autonomous cars, basically, we see ourselves as being a platform, so we still have this technology and the services that support vehicles being shared. like we have fleet partners, we can have privately owned or fleet-based autonomous vehicles. So actually, at least for GetAround, that was the motivation to like have the belief that this could be something that was really huge in, let's say, 20 years, because you have the changing behavior with autonomous cars where you really, truly don't need to own a car. And so we're building the community, the brand, the platform that enables these things, and we'll have deep regional presence.
To add one more thing, I think definitely the limits between, for example, carpooling, car sharing, ride hailing, all these different mobility the limits are already blurring and will blur even more with autonomous cars. So maybe the future of car sharing inside cities for 10-minute trip is not car sharing, it's called micromobility, and it's a different use case. And I think what we are building at GetAround, whether it's called car sharing or not in the future doesn't really matter, but it's more a segmentation of trips. I believe that probably the right way to tackle an A to B trip of 5 minutes in the city for one person will be a very different tool than taking 3 people for a 5-hour drive outside of the city, and the vehicles will be radically different, and the apps and the experience will be different. So typically our focus will probably stay on not the tiny A to B trips, but more like the round trip kind of use case, and it definitely works and it's compatible with autonomous cars.
One last word.
One
Jessica?
last word is, let's keep the conversation going. We invite you to try GetAround. Once, if you haven't tried Drivy or GetAround, try us out, and we want to hear how it goes, and then you'll be onboarded to these new experiences when we have them.
So let me take back what I just said at the very beginning of the conversation. You guys have amazing ambitions, and we really want you to succeed globally. Go get it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.